Hey there, it's the real Jason Duncan. I've got a special announcement for you really quick. I am hosting the Exit Lifestyle Conference in Nashville, Tennessee, February 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 2022. You don't want to miss it. Go to theexitlifestyle.com to learn more.
And I get to teach that thing. It becomes a teachable moment so that they never make that mistake.
Yeah.
If they lose $1 million, they already know that they the pressure they have on themselves. It does not take me yelling at them, right?
Yeah.
It takes me helping them figure out how to make up that $1 million loss. And number two, if they can't explain it to me, I have no recourse, I have no way to teach them, right? That if you can't tell me why you made a decision, you probably didn't look at the numbers. You probably didn't look at the data. You probably didn't do your homework and your due diligence on that decision. You didn't make the best decision you could with the information that you had at the time because you didn't even look at the information.
Yeah, well, perfect. I love how you're defining perfect, because perfect doesn't mean without fault or without problems. It means complete. That's what it means. Are you operating completely with everything that you have? I love the way you describe that.
In today's ultra-competitive business world, being a successful entrepreneur or business owner can be very challenging. Fortunately, contemporary times have blessed us with resources for tackling those challenges and getting us to success more quickly than we could have imagined. Welcome to The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan, a podcast that explores how the world's most powerful entrepreneurs grow incredible companies. This podcast looks at the 5 keys to unlocking success as an entrepreneur. A successful educator turned entrepreneur, Jason's mission is to use his gifts of teaching and leadership to help others get the results they want out of life. Join Jason every week and learn the keys to grow a truly successful business.
Welcome back to yet another edition of The Root of All Success. I'm the real Jason Duncan. Just like you heard in the intro there, this show is dedicated to showing you the keys to success for entrepreneurs. Today's show is really interesting. I'm recording here from my home studio at Dunhaven in Gallatin, Tennessee, just north of Nashville. And my guest is hailing from Massachusetts, and timing didn't work out for him to be here live and in person. He really wanted to, because we were going to smoke cigars and have a glass of bourbon like we do when we meet at the Standard. But I wanted to get him on because I think his story is really appropriate for you and listeners everywhere about how they can be successful as a serial entrepreneur. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to talk about fear. But let me do this first before I give the intro for Patch, our guest, Patch Baker, our guest today. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the C-Suite Radio Network. Thank you guys for syndicating us. Thank you for letting us be on all the podcast players. And if you, as a listener, haven't yet subscribed, please go subscribe and leave a review. And ironically, you leaving your reviews and subscribing actually makes the show better, because it puts us in front of more people. And then I get really great guests like Patch Baker reach out to me and say, hey, I want to be on your show. This sounds like a great show. You got a great audience. Let me get on your show. So go leave that review, go subscribe. And also, if you're not watching on YouTube, you can watch on YouTube at youtube.com/TheRealJasonDuncan. And you can actually see where I am here in my home studio today. And you get to see our guest Patch here in just a moment. So let's talk about Patch Baker. Patch Baker spent some time in the Marines, serving our country faithfully and valiantly, and then got out of the Marines and went to work for the Secret Service, and then ended up getting shot in 2015 and decided, maybe I need to go do something different. And that's when his foray into entrepreneurialism began. And you're going to hear him tell the story about how he started out doing just promoting videos. And then it turned into this conglomerate that he now owns. He has 49 companies. He's wanting to buy 4 to 5 companies per quarter, moving into 4 to 5 a month. Eventually, he wants to own thousands of companies. In order to be successful, when you own multiple companies like that, you've got to have the proper systems. You got to have the proper people, and you got to make the right investments. And you most certainly need to set up the business where it does not require your daily presence. And you're going to hear Patch talk about that today on the show. You're also going to hear at the end of the show him talk about something about what fear really is. So make sure you stay tuned all the way to the end to hear what he has to say about what fear is. So I want to welcome the one and only Patch Baker to the show. Patch, this is an honor to talk to you. Thank you for being on my show, my man.
You got it, man. Happy to be here.
Well, this is, we met recently through an introduction through somebody that knows both of us. And we got on a call just to kind of get to know each other because you're doing some pretty cool stuff in the mergers and acquisitions space. Like I said in the intro, you got 49 companies that you own. And I own a fraction of that amount, but like we're playing in some of the kind of the same ideas. Yeah. So once we started talking, I'm like, you got to be on my show, dude. You're running in some pretty cool circles. What are some of the cool stuff that's happening like right now in your life? What's going on right now, top of mind? It's so cool.
Oh man, we're expanding into a lot of areas that like professional sports teams and some other things that are still kind of. I mean, the paperwork's not done yet, but we're so far down, like it'd be hard to stop it at this point. So I don't know. It's just really cool. Like I'm getting to meet like really, really cool people that are, inspirational to me. You start getting to talk to, owners of professional sports teams. Like that's pretty cool. I don't really get starstruck by it, but it's still just cool to, be meeting those people.
So let's go all the way back to the beginning. Because when you started as an entrepreneur, you didn't start with 49 companies. Nobody does. If you do, I want you on my show because I want to find out how you did that. But you started at some point, you were in the Marine Corps. And then it's when you got out of the Marines, is that when you, and by the way, thank you for your service to our country.
Appreciate it.
Was that the genesis of your entrepreneurship or what happened?
I left and went to work with the Secret Service and then State Department and then overseas as a contractor. And I got shot in 2015. And I was like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm pushing my luck here. I need to do something else. And so I took a stateside contracting job, and then that contract got cut short, just funding issues, whatever. And so one of my buddies was like, hey, man, I can make these really great videos, but I don't know how to sell them. So you sell them, I'll make them, we'll make a bunch of money. Well, that sounds good in theory, but that's not how it works because people don't really know what to do with the video, right? They put it on a website that gets no traffic, a landing page that gets no traffic, a YouTube that gets no traffic. So I ended up kind of starting out saying, hey, we'll turn this thing into a marketing agency and we'll help them actually run the traffic too. And then kind of one thing led to another over the years. And I was like, why am I building everybody else's stuff and not going along with it? So I started acquiring companies and building companies specifically to exit. And that's kind of how we got on this journey.
So the first little foray into entrepreneurship, you got a guy making videos and you're going to help him sell it. But what kind of videos? What kind of videos was he making? I mean,
he's incredible. His name's Matt Johnson, and he's awesome. I mean, when we first started out, we were doing CrossFit gym stuff, and he was big into CrossFit, and so we were incorporating things that now is kind of familiar, but back then, 5 years ago, it wasn't familiar for somebody to fly a drone through a gym, right? It wasn't familiar. Like it was just, they were fast paced uptick videos. And he was really good at making them in a way that he could chop them up and do a 30-second Facebook ad video that led to a 3-minute mini documentary of the gym. And then we kind of parlayed that, and we went to real estate, and we went to, other businesses outside of that. It just happened to be like a hobby for him that we turned into an actual business.
And it took you getting shot to realize you wanted to do something like that instead, right?
Well, I kind of lucked into marketing. I mean, I say luck, but I'm under no misconception. And this sounds cocky to anybody that doesn't know me, but like, I'm kind of a unicorn. Like I have these weird skills that kind of come together from just, my time in the military and like some things that I did in the military training wise have helped me be a better salesperson. Trying to, when you're door knocking in another country looking for certain people, you have to have some sales skills to get that done, that then you kind of turn around and you're like, well, no, I got something else, So there's just weird things that I've made these connections from my military experience to civilian experience. And I don't know, it's happened in weird ways. And it's taken me a while to figure out like what that thing is. How did I learn to do this over here and then be able to apply it to business effectively? So it's been weird.
Well, I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about learning sales skills in the military. And I find that I don't know what you did, and certainly what you did is up to you to whether or not you want to share those stories. But if you're knocking on doors looking for bad guys, yeah, that's a little different than selling Encyclopedia Britannicas or Cutco knives door to door. But there is a similar skill set that is required in order to be successful. And of course, the odds of getting a no are pretty high on selling door to door. But the bad the bad possibilities of bad things happening over in other parts of the world are a little different than them telling you no, get off my front porch.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, but it's weird, right? It's like causation and how you make that happen. Like, for example, if I go to a regular veteran that got out of the military and now they own their own company, and I say, hey, I need you to make me a marketing plan, they'll look at you like your forehead's untied. Like they have no idea where to even start. But every veteran on the planet knows a patrol order or a 5-paragraph order. So if you say, hey, instead of having, tanks and fast movers and mortars and infantry, now you got Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google, and a website. And they're like, oh, it's a combined arms attack. Yes, exactly. So all we're doing is, instead of trying to go out and take over battle space, now we're trying to go out and take over marketplace, right? And we start making those those correlations to those things. And it's much, much easier for them to understand that, right? And the same thing is true with, like how we do reconnaissance to take over some 10-digit grid somewhere. We do the same thing with market analysis, right? And competitive analysis. All those things still hold true. And when you apply them to business, you'd be surprised how far ahead of the normal entrepreneurial curve you are, right? Like, nobody wants to say this out loud, but the military is like the biggest corporation in the world, the U.S. military. Well, how can they have 100% readiness criteria as the standard operating procedure, knowing that they're going to switch people out every 3 years, but still maintain 100% operational readiness? Well, if you did that in business, you could have systems and processes in place to rotate people out, and it wouldn't matter how fast you rotated them in and out, right? The same thing holds true. Like, I wrote this article, and some people loved it and some people hated it. But you write a really good article when people are like on both sides are very frustrated about it. But
true.
I wrote an article that said building a business is just as hard as combat. And in that, I made the argument, and again, this is my own personal feeling, so you can take it or not. But I said, look, in war, lives are on the line, but in business, livelihoods are on the line. And if more people put more effort in taking care of the people that worked with them and the people that they have to take care of, less businesses would fail. Right? Because people get lazy, they get complacent, they get, they keep doing the same stuff all the time, never changing it up, which we say in the military, complacency kills. It's true, but complacency also kills businesses too.
I love that. I didn't expect this today. So I'm really digging the correlations between the military and business. I don't have that experience. My dad's retired Navy. I thought about going to the Navy. I was too much of a nonconformist as a teenager that I would never have made it. But I love the tie-in of what's going on in the military versus that. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions, because I know in terms of the businesses that you own, you got Hero, which is the shirt that you're wearing now. So if those of you are not watching on YouTube, Patch has got this, it says Hero, says help everyone remain operational. That sounds military-ish. Am I right in my assumption there?
Yeah. I mean, acronyms are everything in the military, right? We have so many acronyms that they're just words. I don't even know what half the acronyms I know stand for. Right? I know that's what that is. Right. And, so yeah, we started that back in, April of last year. And what we were trying to do was we were trying to figure out a way that people that were closing down, how could we help them, in some way? And then, we did a lot of stuff for first responders. So we did, police, fire, EMT, rescue. And then we did doctors and nurses and farmers. And since then, we've done a bunch of other ones. And we were able to drive traffic to that product and be able to use some of the proceeds to go help, other, first responders and frontline people, at least. And I just love businesses that have a give back as part of their daily business function. We call them for purposes businesses. I don't love the whole 501c3 model anymore.
The nonprofit.
That nonprofit 20 years ago, they kind of jacked that whole system up. But I'd rather go out and build a business that has that understands how to build flow in a way that could, be used for good. And it's not a requirement that every piece of profit come out of that company to the owner. So it's pretty near and dear in our heart. Like every single company that I have has some give back function to it now.
And Mobius is the name that you have a lot on in your businesses. Mobius Media Solutions, Mobius Printing and Merchandise, Mobius Staffing Group. Where does that come from? Where does that name come from?
Well, Mobius means endless, like a Mobius strip, right? Mathematical equation you can't solve. It just keeps going. I just thought endless marketing solutions, endless printing, endless, like we could move it in all directions. And that's kind of how I look at business too. Like I have this weird thing in my head where I can see pieces, and I understand that I'm unique in this and not everybody can do this, but I see these businesses kind of like puzzle pieces. And there's a big difference between a $9 puzzle that you get at, the department store and, a $300, 5,000 piece you get at a hobby shop. And even the way that the pieces fit together, if you get one from a department store, they typically have rounded edges. And even when you get them done, you kind of have to look at them at an angle so that you can see without the glare. I'm sure you've done that before. But a hobby shop puzzle, like they're actually cut out and they fit really, really well together and they're smooth when they finish. And that's kind of how I look at these businesses. I figure out a way to fit them together and I just kind of place them on the wall and then I can build in any direction that I want. And if I see a little hole or a little gap, I just go acquire a company to fill that gap and I fill in that piece of the puzzle. And I just kind of I've always had this idea that I want to build in any direction that I want. I don't want to be, I never want to niche down. Like I despise that thought because to me, niching down, although has its place, most of the famous books that talk about that are like from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? Like that's an old antiquated thing. Now that we have this new cool thing called the internet, we can be all things to all people. We can be a lot of things to a bunch of people. That doesn't mean that you don't need to have I'd rather like niche a process, right? So like my main process is going to be Facebook ad to landing page to email capture. That's niching a process. That's the one that I'm going to use a lot of. That's fine for me, but I want to pick verticals and I want to build those verticals. And those verticals can go in a bunch of different directions.
I think what you're talking about there, Patch, is it's really interesting perspective that you have. And I want to dig into that just a little bit because there's so much of us have heard in the entrepreneurial space, people that are listening to this show are entrepreneurs, right? And they've heard there's riches and niches. I believe that. And I think you believe that, but I think the way people understand what that means is completely wrong. They think that, okay, I've got to only do one thing, whatever that thing is. Okay, I can only own a company that makes leather belts or whatever. I'm picking something stupid. Like that's it. I can't do anything else. Well, no, I mean, is there a process that like you just explained your process, Facebook ad, the email capture, that whole thing. So you've got a niche in that process and you have become wealthy because you're niching in the process, but you are agnostic. I don't really like that term, but that's what everybody understands. You're agnostic in terms of what businesses there are. It's just, hey, does it help me finish my puzzle? I've got a blank spot in the puzzle. I know how to make all this work together. Is that what you're saying? Because that's what I'm hearing.
I think so. But I think that a lot of businesses are limited by just straight up creativity. Like it is insane how much you can expand a business when you just get creative. The problem is I believe that people believe that the riches are in the niches because that's what lazy gurus say. And it sounds super sophisticated in the beginning, but there are tons of things that you can do in every single business to grow them. And the more you do that to optimize the customer base, the more profitable the company will be and the more the company will split or it grows into this big behemoth. That's all there is to it. So let's just take your belt example because you pulled that out of thin air. I didn't know that was coming. So let's just ideate through this for a second. Well, a belt needs leather. Well, there's got to be some kind of scrap that is left over from that leather. Could we make something else? Could we, you also need the little buckle piece. Well, what if I could find another place that I could sell buckles that were just slightly different than mine, and that covers all of the overhead for all of the buckles that I make. So now my profit margin is way higher. Or maybe it's not belt buckles, maybe it's pocketbook buckles, but I don't make pocketbooks. So I'm going to contract with somebody else to buy all their buckles through me for their pocketbooks. But now I'm in the pocketbook belt thing. Now, if I turn that pocketbook deal down because I only do belts, all I've done is really shot myself in the foot for another profit center that would make me way more profitable in my process. Mm-hmm. So I think niching down it's not like you're putting yourself in a box. You're putting yourself in the corner of a box.
Yeah. You can't have blinders on.
No. And I'm telling you, I really believe that the whole niching down thing came from two places. And it makes sense based off of the time frame that it happened. One was manufacturing was insane, right? Well, you think manufacturers do have to niche down because they have to do these long runs of one product. The more they can crank out, if they can crank out, 1 million of those things, they're way more profitable than if they're doing 10. So what they try to do is they try to make, people stay with them for 20 years and make one little thing. My uncle, when I was growing up, he worked for the carpet company DuPont, right? The only thing that he made was the round grommet, he worked a manual grommet machine for carpets that would be bolted to the floor, typically in like car dealerships or, the ones where they go out in the middle of the floor, but they don't want people to tripping over them. That's all he did. For 25 years, that's all that guy did. Now, that's a niche down process, and that's great, but they were doing hundreds of thousands of those things a month. So that makes perfect sense. However, what nobody talks about is in order to get niche down, you have to have a mega sales force, because it's not like back then where you became the guy for the grommet laden carpets and everybody goes to DuPont. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
So now, do you think you could do a business completely off of that? No, and neither did DuPont.
So your niche today, as a former Marine, Secret Service, going into building your own marketing companies, your niche is the marketing of the companies. And now you're finding 49 other opportunities where you can add tons of value and create generational wealth through all these other companies. That's kind of what your niche is. So it isn't in a single product or single service, but it's more in a process. So how did you get from that first company of helping sell videos, right? How did you get from that first company to owning 49? And I think your goal is to own a lot more than that. So how did you go from that to this?
Well, the first one that I got, I basically got because somebody couldn't pay the bill. And I was like, hey, we need to settle up on this thing. It's coming up the end of the year. And I said, hey, would you mind releasing a little bit of equity in order for me to, get whole on this? And I'll wipe the slate clean. We could start over. And he said yes. So that was how the first one happened. And then, over time, I've kind of refined the process. And now I go out and I actually look for companies that would fit in my little puzzle world. And, I'm able to, because of the network that I have and our marketing capability, and we have a bunch of other things too, our website capability, our development capability. Mobius really kind of hit them. We grew so fast because we were bridging the gap between business development and marketing, which most people don't understand. That you have to know how to market, when to market, in order for the business to do well. So if you're like manufacturing and marketing, selling, and manufacturing can't keep up, well, you don't want to shut the ads completely off, because then you got to start over. So how do you kind of throttle back the marketing in order to prep for the manufacturing? Or maybe it's service based and you bring on too many people at one time. So therefore you got to give the program managers and project managers and account, you got to give them time to onboard people or whatever the case is. And we helped a lot with that. And then we helped a lot with structural growth from, employing new teammates to, okay, we're only going to be worried about profit at this time. And we're going to run a skeleton crew and run super lean. And we're going to get it to this point, and then we're going to backfill people in. So, how do we get enough automations to keep this process up until we can backfill it with other people? And, we really kind of worked in that realm. So it's kind of funny the way that you described it was, my niche was going out and acquiring companies, but that's kind of not true. It is the perceived of what's happening, but that's not really what's true. What's true is it's more like, I'll give you a very elementary type idea. And some people are going to giggle at this, but I really kind of feel like I'm building a transformer, right? I'm getting a lot of different things that are coming in, but they may not be exactly what they were by the time I'm done with them. So like, for example, I acquired a design company. Well, the whole reason that I needed a design company is because I needed a bunch of editors and a bunch of, design professionals that could go in and redo brands and get, all kinds of marketing collateral and all that kind of stuff. I needed that. Well, I was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars on those people before I acquired a company. It has its own clients that are, kind of footing the bill. And then I'm able to use them for the things that I need at cost, which saves me hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. However, we've morphed it from what it used to be to what we need it to be in order to speed up the process for internal projects. So it's kind of like building a big Optimus Prime, right? You have to be able to put them together. They got to fit together. The teams got to fit together. The processes have to fit together. The automations have to fit together. The emails have to fit together. You got a lot of stuff that you need to get those things to work together to just accomplish the mission and then streamline the mission so that it can happen much faster.
Autobots roll out.
That's it, right? That's it.
Optimus Prime. Well, let me ask you a couple of questions. I think there's this idea. No, I don't think there's this idea in entrepreneurship about leverage and how you borrow other people's money to leverage for your own benefit. I do that to varying degrees of success. So I'll leverage other person's money for an investment over here. And so what you're doing is you're taking somebody else's money at a certain cost. You're using it at a lower cost and then charging a higher cost, and you're arbitraging the money. So it costs you $10 to borrow it. You loan it out at $20, you make the spread. What you've done successfully, and you're not the only one that does it. I have another really good friend who's he's a faithful listener to the show, and he'll know who he is when he hears this. But he owns 20 or some odd companies, and he does the same thing, kind of what you're doing. His are more the way he does a little more specific in industries. However, what you and he both do magically well is you're not leveraging money necessarily, although money obviously is always involved. You're leveraging businesses against each other. So you're leveraging, hey, I've got this marketing company and I see this other company I did this work for that I could use their work. So if I can buy them, I could leverage, it costs me money, but I leverage what they can do and their individuals, their people, their skills, their talents, their resources to make my other businesses bigger. I love that. And we need to come up with a name. Pat, you probably need to figure out what's that called. There's some sort of like leverage is what we call in money, financial leverage, but there's this leverage of buying and selling businesses that can build an empire because that's what you're doing. Yeah.
It's asset leveraging. I mean, nobody really wants to put that label on it, but that's ultimately what it is, right? I'm able to put together a task force between 3 or 4 or 5 different companies in order to go to another company and make it way more successful than it could have been on its own. The trick is designing the systems and processes and then backfilling your core people out so that when you sell the company, new people go with it and you don't lose your core people.
Yeah. Well, that's part of what I teach when I teach exit without exiting is like you can exit a business without selling it to a third party if you build the right systems, invest in the people the correct way, et cetera. And it sounds like you're doing that successfully. Do you have a goal? Like you got 49 companies now. Do you have a goal at a number or is there a certain dollar amount that you're trying to get to an annual revenue
I'm going to do thousands.
Thousands of dollars or thousands of companies?
No, companies. Yeah.
Thousands. Okay. That's a lot. So thousands would mean by definition, at least 2,000, right? So 2,000 companies. Sure. How does one manage how do you manage owning 49 companies? What's your trick?
You don't. I mean, you have to have teams to do it. And I mean, I'm acquiring 4 to 5 companies a quarter. I want to get to 4 to 5 companies a month. And I don't manage it all. I'll tell you a funny little secret that no consultant on the planet ever wants you to hear. But one of the reasons that consultants are so good at their job is because they're not stuck in the day to day. They don't have to do things like this because that's the way it's always been done. They can literally walk in and be like, this is a friction point. This is a pain point. This is an area of opportunity. This is a process problem, whatever that is. That's exactly how I treat my companies. I work as a consultant for my own companies. I'm not in the day-to-day of anything. I do not run the finances of anything. I do not run the total marketing of anything. I do not do anything at all, period. It's all my team. I get an update every morning on we have basically some criteria on a data sheet. And as long as it's within the parameters, I kind of look at it like a drill instructor. A drill instructor walks down, a line of recruits. He doesn't care about the 119 recruits that are doing it exactly right. He's looking for that one that's doing it kind of wrong. And then they flock to that and they adjust the problem until that is not a problem anymore. And that's what I'm doing. I don't care about all the parameters that got hit. I care about the ones that are not being hit. And then I just come in as a consultant and say, hey, have you tried this? We should try this. Maybe we should think about this. And I just try to empower the team to, I'm not trying to teach them. I'm not trying to tell them what to do. I'm trying to help them think better. That's it. Like, I don't want to say, go do this specific thing in order to make it work. My goal is to teach them how to think when I'm not there. I mean, it's kind of like parenting in a weird way. The whole point of being a parent is to teach your kids well enough that when you're not around, they still make a good decision. And that's what I'm doing with leaders inside of my organization. I don't want to tell them the exact answer. I don't want to give it to them. I'd rather have a meaningful thought. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go down a little tangent, but you'll love it. So I tell people when they come to work for us collectively, no matter what company they're in, I want you to be perfect. Now, let me tell you what perfect is, because most people believe that there's no such thing as perfect. And I have a very clear definition of what perfect is. And I learned it from the military. And that is, being perfect means that you give 100% of what you have to give in that moment. Meaning if you're shot in the arm, you still get in the fight as best you can at that moment. If you're shot in the leg, well, can you hobble that way? Like, just give me 100% of what you have to give in that moment. And part number 2, make the best decision that you can at the time with the information that you have at that time. That is it. That's what perfect is to me. Now, Here's the cool thing about that is when people make decisions in my company without me there, and it's the wrong decision, right? It's absolutely wrong. It took us in the wrong direction. Money was lost, whatever. As long as that person can explain to me why they made the decision that they did, I will back them up 100%. We could have $1 million loss. I will back them up 100%, because as long as they can explain it to me, I can say, oh, this is the piece that you were missing. And I get to teach that thing. It becomes a teachable moment so that they never make that mistake.
Yeah.
If they lose $1 million, they already know that they like the pressure they have on themselves. It does not take me yelling at them, right?
Yeah.
It takes me helping them figure out how to make up that $1 million loss. And number 2, if they can't explain it to me, I have no recourse, I have no way to teach them, right? That if you can't tell me why you made a decision, you probably didn't look at the numbers. You probably didn't look at the data. You probably didn't do your homework and your due diligence on that decision. You didn't make the best decision you could with the information that you had at the time, because you didn't even look at the information.
Yeah. Well, perfect. I love how you're defining perfect, because perfect doesn't mean without fault or without problems. It means complete. That's what it means. Are you operating completely with everything that you have? I love the way you describe that.
And now, here's the other cool thing, and I'll finish up with this. When you make a decision, it's very easy for everybody to go back and Monday morning quarterback you. And that's what after action reviews are for, and that's fine. But here's the thing. This is what's way more important than that is, yes, you should go back and do an after action review, AAR. You should do that. But it's not just to throw somebody under the bus. It's to help figure out where they could get information faster to make a correction. So let's say you make a decision on Monday morning. Tuesday, You learn new information, you make a course correction, bam, you've done everything you needed to do to remain perfect. And nobody in my organization would say anything about it. It's crazy.
Well, that's why I teach people to do postmortem analysis of lost deals. And you can do the same thing on bad decisions. An autopsy. The reason we do autopsies is not just to find out how they died, but was there a way of prevention? And so when a decision is made in a business that loses $1 million, you can stand behind your people who made the decision if they have justification for it. But that doesn't mean you still don't do the postmortem and say, hey, what happened? Where was the first indication that failure was going to be an inevitable outcome here? All right. Was there a decision that was made immediately prior to that could have prevented it or would have lessened the loss? So I think what you're saying, Patch, is absolutely perfect. And especially for someone coming from your position, owning 49 companies on his way to 2,000 plus, is that you've got to perfect, to use that word, you've got to perfect that concept. Is hey, you got to operate in the perfection. Doesn't mean without fault, just means to be complete. And we're going to do postmortems. When you screw up, own it, and we're going to figure out how to prevent it. Now, here's my next question for you. So I know a lot of former military guys who are doing some pretty cool stuff, whether it's entrepreneurial or otherwise. As a matter of fact, I've got a friend of mine I've already wrote down here on my notes I need to introduce you to. He's here in the Nashville area who does some pretty cool stuff for veterans coming out of the military into civilian life and how he helps them transition. I'm going to introduce you to him later, but a lot of guys like you who come out of the military have varying levels of degrees of success in entrepreneurship. You've killed it. Like you have, with zeros on the end, you've done a very, very, very good job of that. How would you define the word success?
Well, this is tricky because everybody also has kind of a preconceived notion of what success applies to. I kind of think that happiness and success are synonymous in a lot of ways. And I'm happiest when people around me are happy. So I like doing things that make other people happy. It makes me happy watching, when my wife is happy, I'm happy. When my kids are happy, I'm happy. When my teammates are happy, I'm happy. That doesn't mean that I don't have moments where I'm like, yeah, we got that one. There's more you got a touchdown, but there's a whole nother game we still got a game to play. So success to me is not based on dollars. It's not based on time. It's not based off of work-life balance. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. I believe that everything is just part of my life. My wife is part of my life. My kids are part of my life. My teammates are part of my life. Business is part of my life. The banks are part of my life. Getting sued is part of my life. I got sued. We won, but I got sued, and one of my business consultants, he slow clapped me. He was like, you finally made it. When you get sued frivolously, you finally made it, right? It's all part of my life. And there's nothing that I can do about it. It's just, I really feel like success happens when you are more concerned about helping other people because you can than needing to focus on how you're going to pay the light bill or the water bill or your employees or whatever. That's when success happens. And I think that the most successful people in my life not only figured that out, but they're super thankful that they figured it out and they want to help other people do it too. I mean, those are the most successful people to me that I look up to.
Well, with your definition of success, let me ask you the follow-up question. Do you consider yourself successful?
I do. I mean, I'm a pretty happy guy. That doesn't mean I'm a competitor, through and through. I want to win. But I hate losing. I hate losing more than I love winning. And so what that means is I'm constantly pushing. I have the toys, man. I've made more money than anybody in my family tree that I know of. I mean, you could probably add several generations together and it wouldn't come close. But I'm not. People say, well, then you're not happy with that. No, I'm super happy with that. But I also believe that I can change the world in some small ways. And I don't think anybody ever changed the world on a 40-hour work week ethic. That's directly from Elon Musk. I mean, I believe that I do have the ability to impact the world, and I want to do that. And that means that I still work 100-hour weeks some weeks, and some weeks I work 10 hours because I'm hanging out with my family. But I mean, I still do sprints and I still work my butt off, and I still, I'm looking at, 50 deals a month on whether or not I'm going to take them or not. I mean, I'm still learning new laws. I'm still learning new tax codes. Like I'm still pushing hard to try to hone my craft.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, I think how I've come to know you, and then the brief conversation we had a week or so ago, prepping for the show. And then today, you're running in some pretty cool circles. I mean, you're running in some cool circles of people that just your average Joe coming out of the military who starts his own company doesn't get access to. So how did you, and feel free to talk about some of those names, because I know the listeners would be familiar with the people that you've talked to me about, that you're hanging with and that are on calls with you and that you're in masterminds with. How did you get introduced to those circles of people?
I paid. I mean, that's all there is to it. I paid for access. I tried to pay for access in a way that didn't make me a subordinate. I tried to pay for access in a way that made me a peer. I mean, dude, I've had some people reach down and just pick me up. I mean, they saw how hard I was working. I mean, Joe Polish was one of those people that he just came out of the woodwork and was like, hey, man, I see what you're doing. We need to have a chat. And we did. And next thing you know, he's introduced me to another person and another person and another person. And then we're going on, mega crazy destination location trips. And next thing you know, Dave Asprey kind of came to me and was like, hey man, I like what you're doing. Let's have a chat. And, I've just I've been the guy that people saw that I wasn't just talking in the clouds, right? I wasn't being generic. I was really standing for what I believe in. And I not really pick a side. I'm not saying that I didn't pick a side, but I was very direct in what I wanted to do. And that kind of went against the grain of the normal process. Mm-hmm. And I think people liked it, and they saw me with a fire to get it done. And he saw me putting together a world-class team. And then they started introducing me. But do not get me wrong, man. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants, and I mean, maybe more. And if you count like masterminds and destination trips, and just putting yourself in a spot. And some people will say, well, I don't have the money to get started. But you do, right? Like you do. I took a trip across the country one time to go to Facebook, and somebody stood up after I told the story and said, well, yeah, but you had the money to buy the airplane ticket to go. And I said, you don't understand what I'm saying. I would have left my house with my push mower if I had to, and mow grass all the way across the country if I had to. You do have the ability. Are you willing to put in the work to get to the spots? Have you written it down? Do you actually know what the target is? And you need basically three things to do miraculous stuff. You need to be able to write down the mission. Like, what is it that I'm trying to do? You need to write down the end state. When I'm done, what will be done? And those can be varying a little bit. And then the third one, which is the middle, is how are you going to get there? Now, Edison said, if you can't explain it to a sixth grader, if you can't explain anything to a sixth grader, you don't understand it well enough yourself. Well, here's the thing. Most people will give you some generic thing about what their company does, right? We help small businesses do X. Yeah, so does everybody else on the planet. What is your mission? Where are you trying to go? Like, is it I'm trying to impact the world by doing X? Okay, great. Whatever that thing is. Then the end state. By the time I'm done, I will have 3,675 businesses, because that's the exact amount of money that I think I'm going to need to have in order to do the mission, right? Whatever that is. And then so mission, end state, and commander's intent. Commander's intent is all about, like, how are we going to apply all of our assets to get that thing? And when I started doing that, which is exactly how the military does it, when I started doing that and I started teaching other people that weren't military people that, guess what they do? They build those things, and every single day, new stuff is happening that I didn't say needed to happen. Voila, you got a winning formula.
That's great. Well, what do you think? Why are you so successful? Why are you successful when others who have tried to buy 49 companies have failed? Like, what do you think that Patch Baker's secret is to success?
I don't think it's Patch Baker's secret. I think it's surround yourself with really, really good people and pay for them to be there. Lots of people say, go get a mentor. No, don't go get a mentor. My grandfather was a mentor. He wanted to pour into me so that I would be the best person that I could. A mentor finds you. Finding a mentor is basically saying, I want a consultant for free. That's bullshit. Go pay for it. Work 3 jobs to figure out how to pay for the guy that can open doors for you that you don't even know are there.
Yeah. So what do you believe? So I'm going to push back on that. I get your point. But you did pay a lot of money for mentorship through Joe Polish and these other guys. So how do you balance out I
never paid Joe or Dave or any of those. They came to me, which is why I'm saying they came to me and pulled me up. I never paid for those guys. But there are other people, very high-end business consultants that I've paid for to help me structure things right and get my entities right and, get my trusts done and, understanding how to use a SPV, a special purposes vehicle, and how to, there's a bunch of things that have happened that made me better that I never would have understood. I never would have known without those consultants.
What's the one thing that you can look back on now? Had it not happened, you probably wouldn't be here talking to me today.
I had to bust up my company in the very beginning, a couple of times. So one of the things that we kind of focused on in the very beginning, because I knew I could get other veterans to at least take a 5-minute phone call from, veterans they'll answer the phone for you. They might tell you to kick bricks or pound sand, but they'll at least answer the phone for you. Because a guru told me, I found a niche and I niched way down to only doing veteran companies. And if I'd stayed that route, we never would have grown. I had to get out of that. But what I really needed was I needed reps. So the veteran population, they gave me reps. They let me get in there and actually, get through my sales process because they would answer the phone. And we served those people really, really well. But then I had to get out of that and I had to grow beyond that niche. It's where I really learned that niching down it's really dumb. I mean, it handicaps you so badly And until you break out of it, you can't even see how wonderful the rest of the world is.
Well, I want to, and for anybody that just saw that clip and didn't listen to the rest of it, there's context, please.
Yeah.
Back because this guy, Patch, that we're talking to today is one of the best in the world at a certain thing or two. And that's what's helped him be so successful in owning 49 companies, was scaling up to 2,000-3,000 companies at some point. It'll be interesting to get back together because I hope that we can develop this relationship and can stay in touch. But I think it'll be interesting to get back together in a year or two down the road when you are acquiring 4 to 5 a month, like you're talking about, and that portfolio continues to grow and you continue to change the world. I truly believe, and I know you've indicated this in our conversation today, Pat, entrepreneurs are the ones who change the world. They invent the products, they invent the systems, they put together the services that make our lives better. The Zoom, the Zoom that we're on right now, you're in Massachusetts, I'm in Tennessee, here we are talking because an entrepreneur said, I wonder if we could do really cool web. Like, remember back in the day when we were kids, we were talking about how cool it'd be to have video phones. Well, hello. Yeah. This is existing now. Like, it's been in existence so long that we didn't even think about what it actually was. You are an entrepreneur changing the world, my man. And I applaud you. I thank you not only for your service to our country as a Marine, but also your service to the world through entrepreneurship. So I think your story is really, really cool. So as we close out our conversation today, if you could give a piece of advice to a person out there listening to this show who's not yet started his or her business, that are a little timid. They don't know, should I buy a business? Should I start a business? What do I do? Do I do it part-time, full-time? What advice would Patch Baker give that person?
Man, I hate this question because it's so hard to narrow down to one thing. How much time do I have? Do I have 3 minutes?
Give me 3 minutes. Go for it.
All right. So the first thing is you don't know it well enough yourself. Go get somebody to help you do this. I will tell you this. It is much easier to acquire a company and grow that than it is to start from scratch. Does that mean you can't do it? No, it does not mean you can't do it. It's just way easier to acquire a company, get that thing to scale. The other thing is, and this is, we could probably have a whole podcast series on this, but I truly believe that most people that do this and fail at it fail because of something that I think is crippling to people for no reason. And that is fear. Fear is like crushing people from making that phone call to that semi-famous person or sending that text message or asking for referrals or whatever. But I'm going to break this down very, very quickly. Fear is just a lack of one of 3 things: education, experience, or exposure. It's one of those 3 things. It's nothing else. It will never, ever be anything else. Education, experience, or exposure. And we can prove that. There are people that are scared of snakes, but there are veterinarians out there that only work on snakes. Does that mean they never get bit? No, but they have special safety precautions and they know how to manipulate or handle a snake so that they have less of a chance of getting hurt. People are scared of heights, but there's also people like me that will jump out of perfectly good airplanes for the fun of it. Right? There are people that will wash windows but they use harnesses. They're educated. They're experienced. They've had exposure to what it feels like jumping out of a window of a plane. Like they have experience and it's fun. And guess what? You can do all kinds of flips and crazy stuff on the way down, and it's a lot of fun. However, the first time when you have maybe education because you went to school, but you have no experience, or your experience is dropping out of a tower pod and you don't have exposure to the real thing, it can still get you little fuzzies feeling, but that doesn't mean that you're in real danger. Ultimately, people look at the risk far more than they look at the reward. And I feel like most of the time they miss the forest for the trees in that. Risk mitigation is a thing, just like acceptable loss is a thing in the military. If you want to take that hill, how many Marines are you willing to give up to take that hill? Because the hill is so valuable to saving other things, right? The same thing is true in business. But if you have somebody, I'll go all the way back to the beginning. If you have somebody that can help you on the journey, they can reduce the risk, they can optimize the upside, and they can reduce your fear, which is lack of education, experience, and exposure. Because most of the time you can get the education from them. They've got the experience, they've got the exposure. They can help you walk through these things. And what happens is you grow way faster than you could on your own. I think that was right at 3 minutes, bro.
So I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe fear that way, but I wrote it down. And I'm going to say, I'm going to steal it. I'm going to give you credit for it, but I think fear, as you described, is a lack of education, experience, and or exposure. And that is so true. So for the entrepreneur or wantrepreneur sitting in his car, walking the dog, eating breakfast, whatever they're doing right now, listening to this show, if you want to get started in entrepreneurship, you got to get over the fear, because fear can be assuaged. You can get rid of fear through education, experience, and exposure. Just like Patch said, Patch, you went out and served our country valiantly, and you did things that would induce fear in tons and tons of people. Yet because you were educated, experienced, and exposed to the right things, you could go knock on those doors and looking for bad people and fear not rule the day. The same thing for entrepreneurs. It's going to be scary knocking on the doors, asking for the sale, looking for vendors, looking for customers, but you can't let fear stop you. You've got to push through the fear. And I love that. And I'm really glad that we got to that point on the show, because I know that's important to you. And I appreciate you sharing that perspective. I know it's going to be super helpful. So if we finish up here, how would people get in touch with Patch Baker? How would they get in touch with you and your companies?
Yeah, patchbaker.com is a really good place to start. And the only social media that I'm on is LinkedIn. So reach out to me. Every other place that you will reach out to me is going to be a bot or somebody else. But I will tell you, LinkedIn is the only place that I hang out, and I do answer all my messages.
All right. So LinkedIn, look up Patch Baker, or you can go to patchbaker.com. Patch, it's been an honor talking to you.
You got it, man.
I'm really happy that we got to do this. This was a lot of fun. I think we need to stay in touch. And I also want to kind of keep track of where you're going on these 49 to 2,000 to 3,000 companies. I want to touch base every once in a while, because I think that, somebody on my end, I've got 8. And I'm actually culling them. I actually had meetings this week with my team. Like, is it really necessary to spend the time doing the books and the taxes on some of these? So we're going to be culling some of them. And then I'm also looking at acquiring some others for cash flow purposes. So I want to keep in touch with people like you, because you're further down the road than me. And I want to follow in your footsteps. So thank you for being on the show, man. It's been an honor.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Well, there you have it, listeners. Another super successful entrepreneur. Now, this guy with multiple companies under his belt, teaching us about the keys to success. Now, I know that normally I go through all the 5 keys of passion, right place, right time, knowing the right people, preparation, plan. We didn't specifically do that on the show today, but I think you heard in his story about how you push through fear, which is how passion works. Passion pushes you through fear, pushes you to endure through the pain so that you can get to the other side of it. You heard him talk about being at the right place at the right time in his story, and how he was knowing the right people, like his buddy who came to him, who was the videographer, said, "Hey, let's do this company together." That was a right person for him. And then how he was prepared by understanding that niching down into one service or one product would not serve him well. Like, he decided not to niche into the veteran space, even though that would have been a common thing to do and an acceptable thing to do. But all of this relates down to this idea of he has set up these 49 companies on his way to thousands, where he didn't have to be present to operate those companies. The most success you're going to experience as an entrepreneur is when you figure out how to get out of the weeds of daily operations, because it's then you get to go do the things you truly were designed to do, to truly change the world. If you're interested in looking at how I help people just like you do that thing, to do something I call exit without exiting, go to exitwithoutexiting.com. Sign up for my next group coaching cohort called the Exit Accelerator. We're a group of no more than 12 people that I coach live over 12 weeks and give you the 4 steps that I took to exit without exiting, so that you, like Patch, could go start another company and another company and another company, or do what you want to do. Maybe it's time spending on vacation with your family or doing mission work. Whatever it is, the Exit Accelerator gives you options. So go check it out at exitwithoutexiting.com. I'll see you next week when I interview yet another super successful entrepreneur about his or her keys to success. I'm the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we invite you to visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Take charge of your business. Grow it from great to incredible. Join us again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.